The story begins in the crowded streets of Manila. The air is thick with the sound of traffic, vendors shouting, and the endless hum of people moving through the day. Among the chaos, a soft yet powerful voice rises. It belongs to a young man named Renz. Barefoot, wearing a worn-out shirt, and holding a second-hand guitar with a missing string, Renz sings his heart out on the sidewalk near Quiapo Church. He isn't just singing for fun. He's singing for food, for hope, and for his mother who's waiting at home with an empty stomach. Renz's father left when he was 7. His mother worked as a laundry woman, earning just enough for rice and water most days. But even in the darkest nights, when the rain poured through the holes in their tin roof, Renz would hum softly, his voice becoming a small flame against the cold. He loved music more than anything. It was his escape. His guitar was his best friend, his dream, his only way out. Every day after helping his mother wash clothes, Renz would go out to sing on the streets. He would set up near jeepney stops, markets, or church gates, hoping someone might drop a few coins into his small tin can. Sometimes he earned enough for dinner. Sometimes, he didn't, but he never stopped singing. One evening, while performing "When I Was Your Man" by Bruno Mars, a tourist couple stopped to listen. They were moved by his voice, the raw emotion that poured out from someone so young. After recording him and sharing it online, they handed him a few pesos and wished him luck. Renz smiled, not realizing that this small moment would change his life forever. A few weeks later, that same video went viral. It spread from Facebook to TikTok to YouTube. Millions of views. Comments poured in from people all over the world. "This boy deserves a stage. He sings from his soul. Someone get him on Britain's Got Talent." But Renz had no idea his video had gone viral. He didn't even own a phone. It wasn't until his neighbor, who worked at an internet cafe, showed him the video that he realized what had happened. His voice had reached places he'd never even heard of. A local charity reached out to him after seeing the clip. They offered to help him get a passport and even cover his ticket to audition for Britain's Got Talent. Renz couldn't believe it. He thought it was a scam at first. Why would anyone help a boy who sang on the streets? But the people were genuine. They saw something special in him. His mother cried when she heard the news. She had always believed in his gift, but never imagined he'd step foot on an international stage. Days before the flight, Renz practiced endlessly. He didn't have fancy equipment, just his old guitar and a cracked mirror to watch himself sing. He chose a song that spoke to him deeply, "Breakeven," by The Script. It wasn't just a song, it was his life. Every line mirrored the heartbreak of growing up poor, losing his father, and trying to piece himself together when everything around him seemed broken. When the day finally came, Renz boarded a plane for the first time. His heart raced as he looked out the window, seeing the clouds drift beneath him. He whispered a quiet prayer. "Lord, this is for Mama." When he arrived in London, the cold air shocked him. He wore a thin jacket borrowed from a friend, clutching his guitar case tightly. The streets were nothing like Manila. The buildings were tall, the people rushed by, and everything felt like a dream. The next morning, he made his way to the audition hall. Thousands of hopefuls stood in line, each holding onto their own dreams. As he waited, Renz felt his stomach tighten. He hadn't eaten much. His hands trembled. Around him, singers chatted confidently, some warming up with scales. He stayed quiet, praying silently. Finally, his number was called. "Contestant 2473, you're next." He stepped onto the stage, blinking at the blinding lights. The crowd seemed endless. The judges sat in front. Amanda Holden, Alicia Dixon, David Walliams, and at the center, Simon Cowell, the man known for his tough love and sharp honesty. Renz took a deep breath. Simon leaned forward. "Hello. What's your name, and where are you from?" Renz gripped the microphone and said softly, "My name is Renz. I'm from the Philippines." The audience cheered gently, hearing the tremor in his voice. Simon nodded. "And what will you be singing today?" "Breakeven, by The Script," Renz replied. Simon smiled slightly. "Good choice. All right, whenever you're ready." Renz closed his eyes. For a moment, the hall fell silent. He strummed the first chords. His voice came out shaky at first, soft, uncertain, but as the lyrics flowed, something inside him broke open. He sang not just with skill but with pain, love, and hope. The emotion hit everyone instantly. His tone carried years of struggle, his phrasing drenched in sincerity. Each word sounded like it was coming from someone who had truly lived the lyrics. By the second verse, the entire audience was quiet. People leaned forward, some with tears in their eyes. Even Simon, known for his stoic face, seemed captivated. Renz hit the high notes effortlessly, his voice raw but beautiful. You could feel every ounce of heartbreak in it, the story of a boy who had lost so much yet still found beauty in the pain. As he sang the last line, his voice cracked slightly, not from weakness but emotion. The final chord rang through the hall, and for a moment, there was silence. Then, suddenly, the crowd erupted. A standing ovation, cheers, applause, whistles. People shouted, "Yes, yes," and waved at him with tears streaming down their faces. Renz stood frozen, eyes wide, clutching his guitar. He couldn't believe it. For the first time in his life, people weren't just passing by, they were clapping for him. Simon leaned back in his chair, speechless. Then he stood up and started clapping too. The camera zoomed in on Renz's face as tears began to fall. He whispered, thank you so much." Simon finally spoke. "That was absolutely beautiful. You have something truly special. I felt every word you sang. That wasn't just a performance, that was real." The other judges nodded. Amanda said, "You have one of the most emotional voices I've ever heard. You don't just sing, you make people feel." Alicia added, "I've been doing this for years, and I've never seen a crowd react like that so quickly. You're amazing." Renz smiled shyly, whispering, "Thank you, ma'am, thank you, sir." The crowd continued cheering. He looked up as tears filled his eyes, thinking of his mother back in Manila, probably watching the audition online with neighbors crowded around a small TV. When the votes came, all 4 judges said yes. The golden light shined above him. He had made it to the next round. The camera zoomed in as he hugged his guitar tightly, overwhelmed with emotion. His journey had only just begun. When Renz walked off the stage that night, his hands were still shaking. He could still hear the echo of applause ringing in his ears. It didn't feel real. All his life, he'd sung for coins and small smiles. Now, the world was clapping for him. Backstage, the producers rushed to congratulate him, cameras following his every move. They wanted to interview him right away, but all Renz could think about was calling his mother. A staff member handed him a phone. His hands trembled as he dialed her number. The signal was weak, but after a few rings, he heard her voice. "Renz, Anik, is that you? Mama?" His voice broke. "I did it. I sang for them. They liked it, Ma." They said yes. There was a moment of silence before his mother began to cry softly. "I knew it, Anik. I told you, one day the world will hear your voice." God is good. Renz couldn't stop crying either. In that moment, it didn't matter if he won or lost. For the first time, he felt seen, heard, loved by more than just the people on the streets of Manila. That night, clips of his performance spread across the internet. Within hours, hashtags like #Renz from the streets and #Breakeven boy trended globally. Millions of people watched the video. They shared it not just because of his voice, but because of his story, a story of resilience, faith, and music that refused to die. By morning, his life had changed. Reporters wanted interviews. Talk shows invited him to appear. Even the script, the band behind Breakeven, posted about him on social media. "This boy from the Philippines just sang our song like he lived it. Incredible." They followed it with a heart emoji and the Philippine flag. But while the world saw a rising star, Renz stayed humble. He stayed in a small hostel provided by the show. Every night, he video called his mother through the cafe's Wi-Fi, showing her the London skyline through the window. "One day, Ma, I'll bring you here. We'll see this together," he said. She smiled, wiping tears from her cheeks, her voice trembling. "Just don't forget who you are, Anik. Always sing from your heart." Weeks passed, and the competition moved forward. The semi-finals approached. Renz practiced every day, pushing himself harder. He didn't have a vocal coach or fancy gear like other contestants. But he had something no one else did: hunger, emotion, and purpose. He knew every note he sang carried the weight of his mother's prayers, the faces of the children he used to sing with on the streets, and the hope of every dreamer who'd ever been told they weren't enough. The night before the semifinals, Renz sat alone in his dressing room. The lights buzzed softly. He looked at his guitar, still the same old, scratched one he'd brought from Manila. A small crack near the bridge reminded him of the nights he'd repaired it with glue and tape. He whispered to it like an old friend, "You and me again, huh?" Then he bowed his head and prayed. When his name was called, he took a deep breath and walked onto the stage. The crowd cheered louder this time. Everyone remembered him. The judges smiled warmly. Simon gave a little nod, a rare gesture of approval. Renz had chosen another song close to his heart, Fix You, by Coldplay. It wasn't about showing off his range. It was about emotion, healing, and light in dark places. The music started, and from the first line, you could hear the tremor of truth in his voice. He wasn't singing to impress, he was singing to heal. His tone carried the ache of someone who had known pain, but still believed in hope. When he reached the chorus, "Lights will guide you home," the crowd swayed with him. Some audience members closed their eyes. Some held hands. It was as if the entire room breathed together. Halfway through the song, the lights dimmed. A spotlight fell on him alone. Renz's voice cracked slightly on one note, but instead of breaking the moment, it made it real. People felt it. By the time he hit the final note, the theater was silent. Then, as if on cue, the entire audience stood again. Another standing ovation. Simon smiled. Not his usual polite smile, but one of genuine admiration. When the judges spoke, Amanda said, "Renz, I think everyone in this room felt your heart tonight. You have a gift that goes beyond music." Alicia added, "I love that you're not trying to be anyone else. You're just you, and that's what makes you so special." Simon leaned into his microphone. "You're the reason we do this show. You remind us that talent doesn't need polish or perfection. It needs honesty, and you've got plenty of that." Renz bowed deeply, tears in his eyes. Thank you so much." That night, he advanced to the finals. The crowd roared. In Manila, people gathered in the streets to watch him on big screens. Neighbors cheered his name. He had become a symbol of hope, proof that even someone from the poorest corners could reach the world stage. But fame came with pressure. The final round was only days away, and everyone expected him to deliver something extraordinary. The producers wanted him to do a pop ballad with a full band, but Renz quietly asked, "Can I just sing with my guitar?" They hesitated, but Simon intervened. "Let him do it his way," he said. "That's what makes him who he is." The day of the finals arrived. The stage was grander, the audience larger. Cameras flashed, fans held signs that read, "We love you, Renz." And, from Manila to London, backstage, Renz sat quietly, holding his guitar. He thought about his mother, about the nights they went hungry, about the time he almost gave up on music because it hurt too much to dream. Then he smiled. "No matter what happens," he whispered, "I'm already home." The host called his name. "Please welcome, Renz from the Philippines." The crowd erupted. He walked on stage slowly, barefoot, just like he used to sing on the streets. The judges watched in silence. He took the mic, strummed his guitar, and said softly, "This one's for my mama, and for everyone who's ever been told they can't." He began to sing an original song he had written during his time in London, called, "Home is in My Heart." The melody was simple, the lyrics pure. He sang about the streets he grew up on, the laughter of his mother, the sound of rain on tin roofs, and the dream that had carried him here. The crowd was transfixed. You could hear a pin drop. His voice soared through the hall, breaking and healing hearts at the same time. When he finished, there was silence, the kind that only comes after something truly powerful. Then, the entire room exploded in applause. The judges stood. Simon Cowell, usually composed, had glassy eyes. He mouthed the words, "Well done." Renz smiled through tears. He had given everything. Whether he won or not didn't matter anymore. He had already won something greater: respect, love, and the chance to make his mother proud. The results were announced later that night. The tension in the room was thick. The host held the envelope. "And the winner of Britain's Got Talent is," there was a long pause. The crowd held its breath. Another contestant's name was called. The room erupted in cheers for the winner. Renz clapped genuinely, smiling. There was no bitterness, only peace. After the show, Simon approached him backstage. Renz, he said, you may not have won tonight, but you've won the hearts of millions. That's something money can't buy. Renz bowed deeply, smiling. Thank you, Sir Simon. I'm just grateful I got to sing. Simon nodded. Keep doing exactly that. Don't let the industry change you. Renz returned to Manila a hero. At the airport, hundreds of people greeted him with banners and flowers. Reporters crowded around, asking how it felt to lose. He smiled and said, how can I lose when I came home to this? Life slowly changed. Record labels reached out, but he didn't rush. He wanted to stay true to his roots. He began performing at charity events, schools, and hospitals. He started a small foundation to support street kids who loved music, giving them instruments and lessons. Music saved my life, he told them. Now it's your turn. Months later, the script invited him to perform with them during their concert in Manila. When he walked on stage beside Danny O'Donoghue, the crowd roared. Together, they sang Breakeven, the song that had started it all. Midway through the song, Danny stopped singing and said, ladies and gentlemen, this boy taught the world what it means to sing from the soul. The crowd cheered endlessly. Backstage, after the show, Renz called his mother. Ma, did you see? He asked excitedly. I saw, Anik, she said softly. And I felt it here. She placed her hand over her heart. You made the whole country proud. Years later, Renz continued to sing. Not on massive stages or glittering TV shows, but in schools, shelters, and churches. He believed that music wasn't meant to make you famous, it was meant to make you feel. And every time he sang Breakeven, he remembered that first night, barefoot and trembling, when a boy from the streets made the world stop and listen. Sometimes, fans would ask if he ever wished he'd won. He would smile gently and say, I already did. I won the chance to tell my story. And perhaps, that's what makes Renz's journey unforgettable. Not the trophies, not the fame, but the truth that music, when sung from the heart, can rise above poverty, distance, and doubt. It can travel from the narrow alleys of Manila to the grandest stages in the world. It can turn pain into purpose. In one of his last interviews, when asked what he had learned from everything, Renz said, I learned that dreams don't belong to the rich or the lucky. They belong to those who keep singing, even when nobody's listening. The video of his Britain's Got Talent audition remains one of the most viewed in history. And every time someone watches it, they see not just a singer, but a story. A story of faith, courage, and a boy who dared to believe that his voice could change his world. And for his mother, who still lives in their small home in Manila, that's more than enough. Every night, she turns on her old TV, watches his performance again, and whispers, that's my son. And somewhere, across oceans and time zones, Renz still sings, not for fame, not for fortune, but for the same reason he started. For love, for hope, for home. Because sometimes, the greatest victories aren't the ones that end in trophies, they're the ones that end in hearts healed, dreams realized, and songs that never fade.